Hi, this is Kevin Trainer. Welcome to my tutorial on how to update your web content on your PC, commit the changes to your local repository, push the changes to your remote repository, and then pull the most recent copy of the site from the remote repository down to your SOIS web server. Okay, now before I publish that on YouTube, I'm going to come up with a shorter name. Um, okay, so let's take a look at where we are right now. Um, we are, um, let's take a look at what we currently have on the SOIS web server. Okay. Okay, use Firefox as my default server. I don't care. Oh, I have to tell it to do it, and then I have to do it myself. For those of you who might be taking a user experience or usability course, you might think about whether that was a nice thing to do. I don't think it's a nice thing to do, but if I tell them to change it, they should change it. Okay, enough of that. So, where do I want to go? Well, I want to go to my SOIS web server. Mine is called trainerk.uwmsois.com, so we're going to go to that. And then we're going to go to the site. Okay. And we just went to the index.html page. And let's go down and look at my sample student. His name is last name student, first name sample. And his individual page has gotten to the point where there are three different changes that have been made, and that's reflected in the content. So what we're going to do is we're going to be doing this in two parts. Okay. Part one is just to remind you, we've already covered this in another tutorial, but just to remind you what you would do on your own PC to change the content in the site that you're sharing with your coworkers. Okay. And then we're going to say, okay, having done that and having committed the changes and having pushed the changes up to the remote repository, how can you get the most current copy of the content from the repository onto your SOIS web server? Okay, so you'd want to do this if you made some changes, but you'd also probably want to do this if other people on your editorial team had made some changes. Like, for instance, as soon as we form teams, I'm going to populate the teams pages. Okay, so how can you get that content on your SOIS web server? Well, you're going to go out and pull it down from the remote repository. Okay, so all the individual changes get made on our PCs. Whoever is doing that editorial work makes the change on their PC, and then they commit to their local working copy of the repository, and then they push those commits up to the common remote repository. And then at any time when you want to bring down the current version of the content that's at the common remote repository, you're going to log in to your SOIS web server account, and you're going to do a pull. Okay, and we're going to learn how to do that. Okay, so first part, let's make yet another change to the content for my buddy sample student. Okay, so I'm going to shrink this. All right, and let's go find the local copy of the repository. Okay, and it happens to be called the same here as it's called on the other machine. It's called Repo 2016 Fall INFOST 490. That happens to be the top level directory name in the repository. So we're going to open that. Okay. And oh, you know what? Before I make any changes, let's make sure I've got my copy up to date. So how can I do that? Well, I'm going to go and open up source tree. A little bit slow to open on my virtual machine, but here it is. And let's click on the line for the repository. I don't see any changes to pull, but let's just be sure. Let's click on pull, say OK. And it's going to bring out all the changes. Now we've not gotten to the part where we are sharing files with each other. We're all working on individual files. Okay, so we should not be getting any changes that we have to merge into our copy, changes to the same file, because we've allocated individual files to individual people so far. Okay, so I've got a current copy of everything. So now I'm not going to be changing an old copy. That's the first thing I want to do. Then I don't want to change these index pages, but I do want to go to students, and I want to open that, and I want to come down, and I happen to know that the login ID for my sample student is sample 99, which is a phony login ID. And I'm going to right click on that, and here I'm going to open it with WordPad. Okay, and we're just let's make this a little bigger. In fact, why don't we use up the whole window? So here's WordPad. And let's see, I've got 3 list items. Okay, and let's create another list item. And let's try to line it up a little bit better. Okay, so open tag for list item. Added yet one more change during a tutorial session on Thursday. It's almost 5 o'clock. We're going to call it evening. Okay? And then end LI. All right. So we're going to save this change. Okay, and let's close the editor. And let's go back and take a look and see if this change to sample 99.html has been detected by the source tree client. So open up source tree client, and we can see I've got uncommitted changes. That looks good. So instead of being on this log history tab, I'm going to go to the file status tab. Okay, and I can see that I've got the changes in sample 99.html. Those haven't been staged yet. That's fine. But let's click on that file and let's look at the change, and you can see, oh, there's a line that I added and it's in green, and that's just what I'm expecting. Okay. Now, just a reminder here, the reason we use staging is so we don't have to commit all of our changes at once. We pick the ones that we want to include in the commit. Again, we've only got one thing, so we can say stage all or stage selected. They're both the same thing. So we stage it all. And now we're going to come up and say that we want to commit. And come down here and say add 4th changed line of content to sample student page during tutorial on Thursday evening. You don't have to say all that, but it's pretty descriptive. I just want to, well, I don't want to do that actually. So I'm going to click on commit. I've committed the change. So I've now got one change to push to the remote repository at Bitbucket. This is the only way that I can get them to the web server. It's a two-part thing. I push them to the remote repository at Bitbucket, and then I'm going to pull them down to the server from the remote repository at Bitbucket. Okay? Now, right now, it doesn't show that I have anything to pull. I know that in the Mac client for source tree, that it's pretty good at detecting when there are changes that are already that have been made to the repository. But if you don't want to get yourself in the situation that you're trying to push, but you don't have the current copy of all the changes that are in the remote repository, you can never go wrong by doing a pull before you do your push. Okay, so now we know we have all the updates, and now we can push. Okay. All right. So that's it. That's how we make our changes. All pretty easy stuff. That's all taken care of on my local machine. All right, so let's go back to the browser and see what things look like out here on the server. I'm still on that site. Now, I shouldn't have any changes yet because I've changed the content in the repository, but I've not changed the copy that's on the server yet. I haven't pulled down the changes. So even if I refresh the page for my friend sample student, I don't have any changes yet. So let's go and figure out how to pull down the changes. Okay, so let's open up the PuTTY client. Okay, and let's say that we want to load in the settings. I think the default settings are the ones that we want to load. No, we haven't. So I didn't successfully change these the last time. So now I'm going to have to type this in again. I have the hardest time remembering how to save these. So it's going to be trainer K at uwmsois.com. Port 22, SSH protocol. Okay. Can we save that? It doesn't seem to want to save it. Let's call this uwmsois and now save it. There it is. You have to give it a name before you save it. Interesting that it doesn't just simply prompt you. So the next time we come back, we'll be able to use this one and load it. All right, so that's the one we want. Let's click on open. Okay, and it looks like our settings have reverted to what they were before. So I'm just going to go up here and go down to change settings. And, oh, I know what we're going to have to do. So we went to settings for uwmsois. Okay, so first let's change the settings. Let's go to colors, click these two boxes, say apply. That's good. And now let's remember to save these so the next time we won't have to do them again. So let's change settings, uwmsois, save. Okay? So now the next time I log in, I think we're going to get the right things. So let's close this all and prove to ourselves that I'm telling you the truth. Close this session. Okay, good. So let's come back to PuTTY. Okay. Let's go to uwmsois and say we want to load everything. Okay. say open. Ah, yeah. So it remembered the address, it remembered my login, and it also remembered the settings up here. So I just need my password. Okay. And again, let's do an ls to see what the directories are. And the directory that we're interested in is called public_HTML, because that's where our web content goes. So cd, change directory, space, public_HTML. Okay. Now, if I could only spell public HTML. Can't fix my spelling. Okay, we're there. And let's go back and look at some more of the Git basics. Okay, so let's go back to the browser. Okay, and the reference that we've been using is ProGit. So ProGit, go to the book, and we're on. That's funny. That wasn't what I wanted. This isn't it at all. That's not what it looked like the last time, at least. So let's close that and go back to the search. ProGit.org. Well, let's try this. Interesting. Okay, so we have a whole other user interface to it. So we were in Git Basics. Oh, here we are. And section 2.1 is getting a Git repository. So we've already done that. We did the clone. And now we're going to do a next. Recording changes to the repository. Okay. Tracking new files, staging modified files. It tells you how to do all those things. That we're not doing because we're not really using Git at the command line except on the server. And on the server, we're not really changing files. We're just going to pull down the new version. Okay, so committing your changes, removing files. Where am I? Moving files. Do another next. I'm in 2.3. Okay. And I've lost. Okay, so I'm going to go up and do a search. I'm going to look for Git remote. Git remote. No, that's documentation. Okay, chapters. Working with the remote. So I didn't write this down on my cheat sheet, but where we are is we're in 2.5 working with remotes. Don't you wish I had written that down? Okay, so here's what we want to do. What we want to do is we want to find out. We want to work with as few keystrokes as possible with our remote repository. Okay, so what does it say to do here? Well, if you look at what we did here, we cloned a repository into a directory. This is in the book. It's called a tick git, and then they do git remote, and it says that the short name for the remote is origin. Okay, but what they did is they went into the directory. So let's go into our directory. Okay. So we're currently in public HTML. Okay, and let's do an ls to see what's there. Oh, and there's our repository. So change to that cd repo 2016 fall INFOST 490. And let's do an ls. And that is, now we're in the repository. Okay. So how can we find out the short name of the remote so that we don't have to use the entire URL all the time? Okay, well, we can say git remote. And it says that the name, the short name of our remote is origin. Okay, that's good. So we can pull from origin. All right, let's go back and look at the documentation and find a pull. There's a fetch, there's a push, there's a show, there's a rename. Where's my pull? Tagging, grading tags. Oh, please. How did I miss pull? It must be, I must have missed it on the previous page, so let's go back. Pushing to your remotes, fetching and pulling. Oh, okay. So it says git fetch here, remote name, and then they say you can use git pull. We're not going to use a fetch. We're going to use a pull. So I would have preferred to have a full thing like the example that you see here. So we're going to say git pull remote name. Okay. So let's go back. What's our remote name? Well, it's origin. So let's say git pull origin. Okay, wants to know our password. I type in my password. All right. Authentication failed. That's not good. Let's try it again. So git pull origin was fine. So if I don't want to retype that, I can just hit the up arrow. That's the last time I did this. Enter. Okay, and let's try typing in our real password. That's my real password. And you can see we didn't have a whole lot of changes, but the changes are now down here on our local machine. So not hard to do at all. So to review what we did here, we logged in. In fact, let's do it again. Let's exit this. Okay. So we logged in with PuTTY. Okay. I kept UWM SOIS here. I load it. I open it. Get my password in. That's going to bring me to, boy, I can't type. Second time's always the charm. So ls to see where the directories are. Oh, we want to be in public HTML. cd public HTML. Okay. ls. Okay, there's a repository. We want to get into that. So cd repo 2016 fall INFOST 490. And we can see from this blurb in front of our command line prompt that that's the directory that we're in. Okay. And what do we do to pull? Well, we can just say git pull origin. That's it. It wants our password. Already up to date. Okay, so it went, it looked, it compared the version that we had here on the server to the version that was on the uh, remote repository at Bitbucket, and it said, well, there have been no changes since the last time you pulled them down. So that's it. So it's all done. Let's type exit to get out of this terminal program putty. Okay, and then let's go back and let's find our sample student, and let's refresh his page or her page, and there's the additional content right there. Okay, so that's your workflow. Okay, so you can pull down changes even if you haven't made any changes yourself. You just do the second part, the stuff that we just did on the server. Okay, or if you have some changes to make yourself, you make the changes on your machine. You commit them to your local working copy of the repository. You push the changes up to the remote repository, and then you go and log into your server at the command line, and you navigate down to the directory that holds the repository, and you type in git pull origin, and you have to put in your password, but then it'll pull down any changes that are there. If there are no changes, it'll say that there are no changes. We just had an opportunity to see that. And that's it. It's that easy. So I hope you have fun with this. I know I will. And I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.